welcome to Sandbox TV. My name is Alex, and let's continue where we left off. So, what we are actually, where we actually were left off. Let's remember this. Okay, yeah, previous session mostly, I kind of tried to figure out the Quintessa's design for this particular situation, because again, we're going to put in Quintessa under the table, and it's definitely going to be a pretty hard thing to do, in terms of like, she has pretty complex form, and analyzing all these small details definitely is going to be a pain in a butt. Yeah, so that's why I kind of decided to go from something that's closer to how Quintessa's looking in real life to something that basically looks completely different, but still kind of has the same, I don't know, idea around it. Because again, if we depict some type of tentacles in the Quintessa's head, showcase her crown and whatever, it's still going to look like a crown. Even if we changed design, it doesn't change the fact that this is a Quintessa. So yeah, basically that's that. Yeah, for now I will leave her at this state. I guess for now this is enough. I will go to the Quintessa's complex form, I guess, after I will design a statue body for the statue. So let's just go right away into designing body for the statue. Again, we don't have that much time. Unfortunately, today is going to be, again, pretty short stream. Yeah, ideally, you don't even know how I want to make like 4, even like 6-hour streams, but unfortunately don't have that time. And yeah, so for now, I guess for some time I will be streaming, I guess a little bit less, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3. Occasionally, I guess we will go into 4 hours, but I guess it all kind of revolves around my confidence too, because time is not always a factor, actually. There's the cases that I'm basically not that confident in doing all of this. Again, I need to gain experience, I need to gain more confidence in everything that I do, and then of course I will stream without any hesitation in terms of like, yeah, I'm pretty good at this, and yeah. But for now I am too, I'd say, unsure about my skills, and I think this hesitation is definitely showing, because ideally, if I will just forget about what I'm capable of and what I can't do, or what I can and what I can't do, I just basically forget about everything and just do things somehow, and it kind of turns out pretty good sometimes. But if I overthink things, usually I end up with something bad. So it's one of the things that of course I need to kind of learn how to. Would be funny to find a particular layer that can says this line is deleted. It definitely will take me some time. Let's just go from the beginning. Alright. Oh, nope. Be careful with that. Nope. Nope. Because this line kind of annoys me a little bit. Yoo-hoo! Wait a minute. Why didn't delete it fully? Interesting. It's like, yeah, it has on a table. Table. We found this layer. There was a table. We found this layer. Who? To the table. We found this layer. Take a table. I don't know what was that. Either way, let's just continue with our body. So yeah, we are basically, today's session, we are going to put time into making design for Transformer's head, body, because we kind of designed head. I kind of like how it looks. Still, we need to study or try to figure out how this form works. By the way, wanted to make a quick touch-up or information about like construction and form. I know that we will talk about construction later when we're going to study all these things, but since after I finish this I will dive into 3D, I wanted to make sure that I will cover this subject. So yeah, considering these forms, so all these our basic shapes or basic, let's say, construction cubes. The cool thing is, like, throughout the whole process of me learning how to draw, I thought, and a bunch of books actually told me that after I will know how to draw a cube in almost every position, then I could draw anything. And it's kind of true, because I truly can draw a cube in any position possible, because I can imagine this cube, like, see through this cube and try to figure out how it's going to look, and etc. So part of me truly kind of believes that yes, I can draw a cube from every angle. I can modify this cube to make it whatever angle possible, by making some type of a steps, changing directions, whatever. So, like, yes, I know this and I know how it works, but the problem is, usually your brain not that good in trying to like use this information when you're drawing these type of complex objects. So you can, I guess, need to somewhat train yourself to see these in complex objects. So that's why it's a good thing to start simple. No matter what objects you're drawing and you're starting to draw, if you start simple, that way you of course learning to do all these things. But and sometimes it's not the case. So for instance, when I drew these guys, for me, of course, since they have a spherical form, was much easier to showcase them in sphere. But the problem about sphere is pretty hard to put into space, because the problem is, no matter how you put sphere into space, no matter where the sphere is going to be placed outside of our horizon line, it kind of stays the same all the time. The only thing that changed about the sphere and the perspective is if we are trying to make it, put it further in space. That way, of course, it becomes smaller. The problem is that I'm kind of had and still probably having about spheres. The only way to showcase what perspective sphere on or in to showcase properly is to work on a form lines, and that way you can suggest from what angle this sphere is supposedly drawn. Of course, this is not necessarily right angle. I guess it has to be much more dynamic. Yeah. So you're kind of depicting somewhat some type of a center lines in here, and this is the only way to showcase a sphere from a different angle. Of course, if you draw in sphere in here, the sphere has a little bit different angle to it. Yeah, so basically when you're drawing a sphere in perspective, it's much harder because, again, the shape stays the same every time, but the inside information is changing. When you're drawing a cube, it's completely different, or how you call it, planes, yeah. Forgot. If you're drawing planes, of course everything's kind of differs. So yeah, this plane is going to be right here, this plane is going to be of course completely different. Again, we're not talking about two-point perspective right now. I'm kind of demonstrating a one-point perspective. I'm not considering these horizon lines, or not horizon lines, but these things. And I guess, yeah, and whatever angle we are depicting all these things, they look completely different. So shape changes. When we are drawing a sphere, shapes doesn't change. So this is one of the things that I had problem before, and still kind of struggling with it, to know how to properly do this. And I guess if you're having trouble to putting sphere into perspective, just imagine, slice the sphere in half, and try to imagine the sphere as a cube. Or not as a cube, but basically slice it and try to showcase the dimensions of the sphere. So you kind of draw in a cube, because ideally we could turn out this thing in a cube. I think it's not necessarily correct perspective, but nevertheless. So yeah, so that's why this idea of, if you learn how to draw a cube in every possible angle and visualize it, then you can draw anything. And it's kind of a true thing, but still it's pretty hard when you are working with imagining particular form in a space. You usually think about this form in the way that this form is represented in front of your eyes. You're not necessarily dive into simplifying it to these simple shapes and geometric forms. So of course we need to think about geometry when we are working with these type of shapes. For instance, if I would try to figure out how to place in perspective bomb, I would definitely think of something like this. So yeah, he's he's actually a little bit tilted. Yeah, so I definitely could place something like this, and something like this. So by slicing them, it kind of helps you to figure out what direction your sphere is going to face, without working on understanding how this sphere is actually, yeah, what type of lines the sphere actually has. Because sometimes drawing these lines is a pretty hard thing to do, and imagine, at least I'm kind of struggling with spheres a little bit when it comes down to the perspective, because it's kind of a, yeah. With ovals, it's again pretty easy too, because again, ovals are basically usually we are putting them inside of the cube, and then we just make them smaller, and they just go into perspective. So it's, of course, when we're working with ovals, it's much easier, or ellipses. So drawing ellipses, of course, much easier. For instance, if we're drawing these type of ellipses, they are a little bit more, I'd say, distorted in terms of, like, yeah, it's better representation, but still, because it's kind of, yeah, I need to warm up before. If we would actually construct an ellipse, then we of course construct it like properly by trying to put this ellipse into this particular angle. Yeah, but still, if we're talking about like making this a spherical surface, But again, there's a bunch of problems in terms of like perspective on how you work with this. But again, when you work with the perspective, you need to understand for the surfaces of the object. This is one of the, I guess, one of the important things. But the problem about it is, again, you need to just basically do this a lot to learn, not to learn, but to make this a habit for your brain to do. Because if we not have this as a habit, then we need to force ourselves to do this until it becomes a habit. So yeah, and until then we are just going to see in shapes. We're just going to see in silhouettes, trying to depict all these silhouettes, and that's it. But again, when we're working with silhouettes, we always can change the inside information of this silhouette by putting everything in it. So we could make it like this, we could make something like this, and simply change the form. Pion, 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 pion. So yeah, and of course when I'm working with form, ideally I want to do this, and I have all needed information to do that. So I have the knowledge, but unfortunately my brain is don't want necessarily to do this for a bunch of reasons. And one of the reasons is, I guess, because I didn't accustom to do that. I'm not get used to this yet, because I didn't do this enough to be that much confident in all these things. Yeah. So I can work with a complex form, but the problem is, for me, this type of like thing still looks too uncontrolled. So yeah, there's a bunch of possibilities, but still I need something more solid. And I guess that's why I'm usually going into 3D, because I kind of think that I learn form in much more intuitive way. Again, I will talk about this a lot, about the intuitive way of learning. And for me, like trying to create an illusion of reality in 2D space, it's not an intuitive way to learn. I know that as an artist we need to learn how to do this, but still, either way, the key to learning in creating illusion of the form is to understand the form. And in order to understand form, we need to understand surfaces. We need to understand where these surfaces are directed. So we need to understand the direction of these surfaces in terms of placement and perspective. So and one of the ways to do that is imagining things in 3D. And if you're bad in imagining these things in 3D, like at the beginning stage of your learning, if it's really hard for you, why wouldn't you use something that much more intuitive? That way you will analyze these forms better in 2D. But again, there is a trap to this, because if you will go and just do all these things in 3D without analyzing them, unfortunately you could become a slave to 3D, and basically that way you possibly just could, I don't know, be dependent on 3D programs, and oh come on, they're doing everything for us. Still, this is one of the like dilemmas that I had before, and I'm not necessarily having this now, because I kind of convinced myself that I'm going to use 3D programs not for the sake of making things easier, but only for the sake of learning more intuitive way. So that's like why. But still. Okay, let's just go right away into designing a body for our Transformers statues. So again, I choose this design because I want to depict this design right here. I guess this design is going to be depicted either here or here. I will think about that later. And yeah, of course these are going to be used in our chairs and design of our chairs. After we will figure out their form, because again, for me this form is pretty complex, since kinda I designed it without any references. I'm not necessarily understand how this form works from all particular angles. That's why we need to put it into sculpting and basically figure out this form by sculpting it in ZBrush later. But for now, again, in order to make this whole, not just sculpt only head, we are going to make the Transformers body and design it. Yeah, let's just go right into the designing Transformers head. So first, of course, I will open some Transformer references. They could help us, definitely. Why not? And Transformer references. And again, OneDrive added. Come on, why? Why you? I need to find a way to somehow turn this off. I hate when it shows me OneDrive. Transformers head. Again, as references, I guess, for these knights, I will be using designs from Megatron. I guess I will be using similar designs to these guys, two knights, because again, I kind of want to use designs from knights. Yeah, so all these designs I will be considering as something that we could draw from. Yeah, for instance, these. Yeah, not Angry Birds. I guess we have enough references to work with, so which is a good thing. Let's open our Pinterest references too. Again, you can check out my Pinterest references through the through panels on my channel. Anytime. Yeah, and in Pinterest, yeah, there was a couple of pretty cool designs that I could work with in the Pinterest. So yeah, let's just open these and design these. Again, when we're designing these type of things, first that we need to establish is, of course, the proportions. So the end of the body, and usually when you trying to establish the proportions of any type of body, there's a universal thing, and by measuring it with hands, which is kind of the easy way, but for instance, if I'm working with a human form, I don't like measuring with hands, with heads. I rather measure with craniums. So like, yeah, for this robot, for instance, cranium would be this one, and I would measure the size of the cranium, not the size of the whole head with the jaw. So I forgot what method, whose method this is, actually. But either way, so but for these type of creatures, of course, we are going to use our head method with heads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's just go with 7 because transformers are pretty long. Yeah. So it's going to be like right inside our picture frame, which is not always a good thing. I could extend the borders of this picture frame. Let's do that. But first we need to find it. I don't know where... something here. Yeah. Definitely need to extend the borders of the picture frame because I don't wanna... I need some more freedom in picture plane. Yeah. Let's continue. You lose. Continue. That was so funny in Taken 5, but in Last Taken it's not that funny. Voices change. Yeah, of course we will put this like in the lowest possible opacity, but still we need to see it. And let's go with 5. I'll just place this on top. Ideally, I guess I need to lock it because we're going to shift a lot, so we'll just lock it. Again, lock on the second monitor for some reason opens, so there is a tab menu which allows me to choose lock. I don't know why it's on the other monitor. I guess it's the problem with the primary and secondary monitors. Yeah, so now we kind of established its height. So legs for these transformers are going to be in here. Now we know that. Chest is going to be somewhere in here. The end of it, I guess. Torso. Maybe somewhere here. A little bit higher to the center. We always can change this if it's not going to work. Yeah, and this is one of my problems. So I need to go through these like flat views in order to understand how this design works, because at least for me, I found it much more... This is how my brain works. I guess most of the artists just go right into designing things in the particular angle that they have it. So like, yeah, I have like 3D angle and particular 3D angle, and I'm just basically designing things in this particular angle. I don't know what I'm doing now, but still, I kinda, I don't know. This is something horrible. Either way. And they design, and then design all these things in this particular angle. But again, my brain is not get used to these things yet. I hope in time I will definitely be able to design things on a get-go, like right away. But for now, unfortunately, I need, in order to design something, I need to go through these flat stages. And maybe the more I will work with 3D, like not maybe, I'm actually kind of pretty convinced about it, that the more I will work with 3D, especially sculpting, the better I will be in designing things on the get-go. Because again, when you're working with sculpting, you visualize all form from all possible angles, and this is the thing that I need. I need to learn how to visualize form from all particular angles. And again, the only reason why I'm not visualizing it by like visualizing first a cube and then putting this form inside of this cube, because it's not distorted cube, it's actually cube that just tilted. Let's just, yeah, the surface basically looks directed there. This surface directed there, top. But again, these type of things for me is still pretty uncomfortable to do. So I'm not confident in myself yet to work with these type of things and putting all these complex designs right in here. Not that I can't do this, because again, earlier I sort of did it, but again, this way doesn't seem for me intuitive. I need more intuitive way, where I actually can learn a lot from it. And for myself personally, I didn't learn a lot from this one. Yes, so the only way to learn from this one is just by repetition, repetition, and repetition. And again, I'm more practical thinker than, more theoretical thinker than practical. So for me, unfortunately, this method not necessarily the best one. My brain is not picking up with this method. I pick up some information from this method of repetition, but it's too slow. I need much more fast growth, I'd say. At the same time, not like too fast growth, like you just forcing things, but still growth that every move that I make is calculated and I learn as much from it as possible, that I actually gain something from it. And from these methods, I'm not necessarily gaining that much. The only thing that I'm gaining from them is just, I don't know, just understanding probably the particular angle for this form. But still, one of the problems why this method is bad for me, because yes, of course, okay, I imagine this form from this angle, but the back is still unanswered for me. So, and there's no point that I kind of solve the problem from this angle. I need to understand the whole thing, not just like this side. And usually when I'm working with this method, I always feel like I didn't, I don't know, like I made shortcuts. So I need to, when I draw this form actually in this type of angle, I need to understand this form from all possible angles. But since it's not necessary when you're working in 2D, you kind of usually, okay, yeah, this angle is enough. And I need control. So I don't feel in control when I'm doing this, because if someone will tell me, okay, for instance, like Klein, okay, you solved a problem of drawing this in this particular angle. It's awesome, but you know what? We need to draw it from another angle. Let's just put it in another way. And you have on this like 1 hour. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, what? Like 1 hour and to completely rebuild this form from a different angle, but I don't know how this form looks like from back. Oh, and that's why I hate it. So I need more control, and I definitely know if I know how this form looks in 3D from all possible angles, and I actually figured out how this form like rotates, and I am actually seeing this, and in the future the more I will do that, then I will start imagining these forms in 3D, the more control I'll have. This is the whole reason why I'm stressing all these things and why I'm working right now on flat designs rather than just work on This type of design, because again, almost everyone can do a flat design. You don't have to be an like super experienced artist to make flat designs. Of course, you need to know basics of design, I guess, in order to make them appealing and cool aesthetically. But still, and of course, think about function and whatever. So, but still, this method, unfortunately, for me, not something that works. Again, for you, this is probably the best way. It all depends on how your brain picking up information. If your brain is good with this, do that. If your brain not good with this, start with these, because these are much more simpler way to design things. Because after you do these in flat, by the way, one of the coolest thing is to work with the profiles. So if you don't know how to learn how to draw a human face, start with a profile, and especially when you're starting to implement character in the human face, or human-like face, whatever, it could be an anthropomorphic thing. One of the biggest advantages for you to integrate this personality and character in your drawing is to analyze it from side view, because side view is the best view for the human to actually kind of work on a particular things, character related things, because you can now work on make his forehead, for instance, flat, make his eyes like too deep. This is going to be a bad example, but still, make his lips protruded. So yeah, so that way you can control characteristics of your character by basically shifting these things. This is a horrible example. I did draw humans a long time, so sorry for that. I need more practice in this. So yeah, profiles is the thing to go when you're struggling with trying to figure out the stylistic things for your character, or because profiles is pretty easy to exaggerate. And of course, when you're working with the front view, it definitely helps you to just basically imagine this design and give this design some type of an appeal. So front, I guess, works with appealing. This works with the character, and back usually doesn't work for anything, because back is not something that you usually show your character in. So yeah. Okay, so let's just stop proving, or not proving, but addressing this point, and start doing something. Finally. Yeah, my voice a little bit down. Did slept a lot. Yeah. So okay, as all transformers, as we see in Quintessa, they not necessarily have a neck. So their neck is somewhere inside of these awesome or strange things. So the same we are going to work with the transformer. That way they going to look much more interesting. So the first design element that I definitely could or want to address, we also need to kind of somehow translate these designs that we have in our helmet into our body, because this is a smart thing to do in terms of design. So let's just do right away shoulder pads. Doesn't look strange. They're too big. Shoulder pads. pads. Okay, let's just go first on work on silhouette, and then we were going to add the inner details, because like, of course I would definitely want to suggest anatomical form in here, or at least something that close to anatomical form. We're just not going to connect these yet. Bam, 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 drawing. Okay, so I don't think that they're that slim though. So right here, of course, we are going to use our anatomical suggestions. And again, like, they don't have to be equal. We need to create some type of inequality in here. Unequality, or yeah. This way, this will make this design much more cooler, because again, this one is bigger, this one is big, this one is small, this one is middle, in terms of the size differences. Because we don't want for design to be boring. And usually when you work with the equal distribution of the masses, it creates boring results. So you need to kind of, if you want to draw attention to a particular part of the body, then you avoid equal distribution. If you want to viewer go through this in much more faster flow, I talked about this earlier, then you would put somewhat equal distribution, because equal distribution is usually boring and viewers' eyes just go through this. But then if we kind of touch on something that's not equally distributed, like for instance these two, then we are kind of stopping our eye, and this just becomes more interesting for the viewer to see. And these zones are usually the zones that viewer is attracted to. I just separate them by plates. Yeah, I guess it's kind of a complex thing though. I kind of wanted to make this less complex. Let's think about it. So on the night references, they are I guess the whole thing about shoulder pads. Yeah, we definitely need to think about shoulder pads and make them pretty cool. But the problem is, like, you see it's too big. Considering the size of the head, it looks too big. But for now, we're not going to think about it. I guess I always can just make it smaller. Either shoulder parts are too big, or this thing doesn't work necessarily. Yeah, let's just erase this, try to do something less. No, actually. The only problem with these type of designs, you not necessarily think about the surfaces. So this is one of the disadvantages by working with these type of things. You're not imagining these things as a surfaces that directed somewhere. If you do, this is of course the good thing to do. But if you don't, it definitely could become a problem. And for me, like at the beginning, I usually didn't think about these as some type of like surfaces that I'm imagining. Usually I just work on these as a shapes, and I'm not necessarily working on them as a... Oh, come on. That was a bad idea. Now I need to erase this. But again, remember when we talked before, no matter what shape you have, you always can make this shape whatever direction, put the shape in every possible, suggest every possible surface in it. So we could go with this one, put this in this direction. We could create the opposite direction. We could create just like straight direction and whatever. So that's one of the advantages and at the same time disadvantages of these type of designs when you work with the flat first and then go into 3D. I'm not necessarily thinking about the function, because again, don't think that function is something for transformers to have. Okay, yeah, we definitely need to create some type of separation for the shoulders and the body. It's like you want to make these higher. Yeah, let's just do that. First, let's just save. Again, something similar to Quintessa designs, so I guess again using repetitive things, which definitely will benefit us in an overall picture. Yeah, I guess this is more than enough. It's like I need to make his body much bigger. By the way, proportionally, that is a thing when you were trying to, at least when you're working with the male body, is to put these two in here. That way you kind of approximately figuring out the width of the shoulders. But since we're working with not necessarily human form, rather alien, we're not going to stress about this. Yeah, okay, the problem with heads. Yeah, the hand's definitely going to be a problem in terms of design. Definitely will become a problem, so I don't know. I don't like shoulder pads that much. It's okay. This is where his chest is kinda ends, but what's then? This part of the body has to be more say dynamic in terms of movement. It has to allow movement, so we don't need to put too much information in here. I guess maybe it's just going to be something like this. And also I'm not going to do that yet. It could distract me, because after I did this in Quintessa, it's kinda looks worse. And also in terms of the designs, they don't have to be too busy. What I talked about, like one of the problems that I'm having with the Transformers designs, they are too busy. You want some type of a relaxation in the movement. For instance, right here we have pretty busy design, because like they are actually pretty busy. No, actually there's this thing about form. This thing's actually has to be tilted. Not tilted, but curved. For instance, these designs in here, they are maybe let's do this. So we need to create the places where things are busy, and we need to create things that are not busy at all. So the places of rest and the places of details, and like big designs like here definitely going to be the place of rest. Actually, it's kind of reminds me a little bit of the Transformer signs, partially. We could implement this, of course. Why not use it though? We could. But if we at least suggest it, it's definitely going to be a pretty cool thing to do. So again, the places of rest, big object or part of the design. Then we have like middle, small, and then like a little bit busy ones. Then again, so the whole thing about the contrast. Improvising. Yeah, I don't know what we could do in here though. It look normal. Yeah, let's just do something like this, like a plate. It would be interesting to figure out this in 3D though. Like again, right now I'm not necessarily thinking about I'm not thinking about for the surfaces of these. I'm just basically designing shapes that look decent, for me at least. And after I'm done with these, and we will go into 3D stage, it's going to be pretty interesting to figure out how these. This is actually going to be a hard surface and soft surface design. I'm not that accustomed to working with a hard surface in ZBrush. I did a couple of hard surface things in ZBrush, but it's a pretty hard thing to do though. You need to, of course, practice a lot in order to work with a hard surface in ZBrush. I'm not that good at it, so I usually work with ZBrush with the soft surfaces and leave hard surface to Blender modeling. So we need to figure out how we could work with the transition to hands. It's going to be definitely a problem. Good thing again that we're not working with a big sizes and big scale. That way we're not going to go into too much details, because again we can do so much with these type of things in here. Yeah, right now shoulder pads are actually too big. We need to make either them protrude a little bit in here and make hands a little bit smaller. Let's just go into legs. Maybe after we are going to have legs, that way I guess it will be much more workable. Let's just go through references quickly and see their designs. Again, transformers are simply mechs, but they are pretty organic looking mechs. Mechs. Ooh, I kind of forgot about repetitive design, so let's just add something repetitive in here. So what we could take from our head. Actually, heads of the transformers are pretty small. So like realistically, if I'm trying to compare this to the body, it seems too small. But the thing is, usually transformers heads are much smaller than their bodies. So their bodies are pretty big. And proportionally. That's one. Yeah, that's I guess the problem was for this one. Yeah, if we for instance see this design, the real design of the transformers, they tried to, when they worked on this statue, in reality I guess they tried to make Optimus Prime's, if this is actually him, Optimus Prime's head a little bit bigger proportionally to the body, and it looks pretty strange. So something throw me off about like proportions of this transformer. And I guess one of the problems, if they made his head a little bit smaller, that way it could look much more appealing. But they kind of made his head bigger than it's supposed to be, because they tried to work with the human proportions. That was a problem, I guess. And also, I think his body, he has too big legs and too short of a body. Because of this, he looks pretty strange. And I have like the opposite thing. I have too long top of the body. It seems like too long, prolongated, I don't know. We could balance it with making it much more I guess let's just put it a little bit higher, I guess, because it definitely looks not that good. Yeah, this one is better. Yeah, let's think what we could add from the head. So in terms of a design, what we could add from the head. So one repetitive thing is this one. So this one and this one, they are kind of similar a little bit. So what's covering his mouth and groin? Kinda the similar things in terms of a design. This thing on top, kind of repeats this thing in here. A little bit different, but still almost repeats it, like in here. I didn't do necessarily good on these things, but we could add them in. Yeah, this transition looks strange. It's maybe aesthetically it could look good, but we always need to think about a function too, or at least consider a function. Not necessarily think about like function, but consider it definitely. So how he's going to move. Oh cool, these are actually could look like an arrows that points to its head. This is pretty cool design element though. Just make it bigger. To suggest so with hands, yeah, this is a problem. They definitely not cubic. They have to have some type of curvature to them though, like 100%. And these curvatures kind of have to work with the design. Yeah, it's going to be hard to draw his hands, definitely. Let's just go a little bit later to this. Also, I guess I need to place these a little bit inside. Don't like that they are too out. Yeah, a little bit here, yes. Maybe we need to make this as one thing, right here. Okay, and like, okay. Hello, the first problem. Not the first problem. Now I don't have that much time, that much space for the legs. So like knees has to end in here, and legs has to be in here. And if I will showcase this, it's going to be strange. Definitely, it's going to be strange. Let's just suggest horrible heads, legs. Yeah, looks too short. Horrible and too short. So let's put this thing higher. Higher. Probably in here would be a good thing though. Let's get rid of our design overlaps. Make something one and coherent from them. Butterfly. Again, when you're designing this type of thing, it's pretty hard to keep something in your mind and constantly use it. So it's not something that you usually would like design when you would design a human body, for instance, in some type of a clothes. Usually when you're designing clothes or for the character, you think about the character personality. It's pretty hard to implement something like character personality into these like non-living things. Yeah, Transformers are kind of, I don't know, they still robots, and since we're actually now working with statues, okay, let's just think how legs are going to look. And also what I definitely don't want to make legs too static. So as you saw, because I made legs too static, they looked pretty horrible. Usually if you want to create a much more dynamic pose, because when you're working with flats, with flat designs like this, it's pretty hard to depict pretty cool movement in here. And usually what you do is, I guess, made something like this. And of course make them bigger. They are too small though. Okay, knee has to be a little bit higher, definitely. Probably somewhere here. So I guess I will start with the kneecaps. And then just add to designs. Guess it would be good if we had some type of dynamic here. Dynamic. Okay, let's make our brush a little smaller. We're definitely going to think about these things when we're going to work on 3D, like 100%. But for now, I guess this is not something that we need to stress about too much. So, also we kind of need to think about what's underneath. Because that way we of course could understand placement for the legs. And still they look kind of short. Yeah. Guess you need to move them up a little bit more. Knees too. Looks too short. Still. Yeah, I guess body is too long. It's like we need to get rid of one particular design element. Let's just make it smaller and more smaller. And put it up again. Because again, even here we need to think about unequal distribution. So this part has to be compared to this part and to this part. Neck. So like big, middle, and small. Usually these things are the things that create pretty interesting designs, or at least organic designs. Because if you would create something just like, for instance, oh, let's create a human and make for this human equal distribution. So his body is the same as height as his legs, and the same for his arms. This is definitely not something that looks good. But if you work with an equal distribution, then you could create pretty interesting results. So okay, let's just make his legs long. So right here is almost the character is not evident at all, and it looks not organic at all. But if you kind of create a little bit of this, like small changes in here, make his head a little bit smaller, even smaller. No, let's just make it out of proportions big. It looks a little bit more organic way. I don't know. Again, right here all things are the same. And it's non-organic. Non-organic. No. And yeah, this represents organic. Non-organic. And this kind of looks a little bit more organic because again, we have different thing for unequal things, and for the head. Of course, we could repeat sizes. So, for instance, we could make head the same size as, for instance, this one. But at least not throughout the whole design. We have something like some type of differentiation. But if we will make it smaller, but a little bit bigger than this, and smaller than this, it would be even ideal. So yeah, again, this looks like more organically in terms of a design. This looks not organic at all. And that's what I'm talking about. So if we are distributing all these things, they need to be... Yeah, now we need to delete all those things. What type of layer that I'm working with? Okay. Deleting information. So these small things, unequal distribution, is something that definitely helps bring design to life, usually. So if you think that your design with your proportions is something bad, just basically use unequal distribution of masses. And you'll be fine, I guess. It's going to be a pretty hard thing to do though, with legs, to make something interesting from them. Because again, you kind of want something repetitive like in here, but the problem is if you create two different things, they're going to stand out and look strange. Let's just try to implement something similar to what we already saw. Definitely looks strange. Oh, come on, I forgot to turn off this one. If we would see it in. On both sides it could be definitely beneficial. Okay, let's first make this one not present at all because we're not going to see it. yeah, at the beginning I didn't like how this thing looks, so I kind of wanted to be more. That means that we need to change this one too. Kind of want to make them longer, I guess. A little bit more longer. Let's just create an additional layer in here. Why not? Like it's two-layered thing. Same for this one. It's 2 layers. Or actually, let's just make one repetitive thing with this one. Let's save it. So yeah, about legs, I don't know. Like, yeah, I repeated some type of designs, like in here, for instance, in here. So these type of designs inside here, and they inside here, and they're inside here too. Just make legs a little bit bigger. Okay. Overlaps, not tangents, overlaps. This is like a heart. Not something that transformers would have, definitely. Now let's just make this thing inside. Yeah, okay, this is more like something in here. Closer, at least. Let's just think about that though. Should we need this? Do I need something like this in here to create a little bit place, no place for busyness? Same maybe for this one. Because again, it seems like we have too much. Yeah, it's too busy. We could use it here because again, it definitely could help us bring more movement. So for instance, if transformers try to rotate their torso, these things, or for instance tilt, these things are basically squishing. One on top of each other, one on top of another. Definitely could be the case in terms of how how this thing functions. Same I guess is going to be used in the leg. So all things that have movements in them has to have all these type of things. So I guess we need to make the same things in here too. Need to create something that could potentially make the ability for movement. But again, okay, these things are going to be bent like this. So what I'm talking about, if it's not clear, is this one. This type of movement, like this. So in order to achieve this type of movement, we need to think about function a little bit at least. These things are going to become yeah, one on top of another, and these things are too. They are of course going to change a little bit. They're not just going to stay static. For the arms, we need to think about how it's going to look. So the joint of the arm, I guess, somewhere in here. And if it's going to move, it kind of has to move the same way. So yeah, placing them like this would be a smart choice. So if hand is going to work with like, properly say, like on top. Yeah, so like we are lifting head forward. This way, these things are just going to work like these. And if it's going to go up and down in this direction or this direction, they are just going to a little bit like change. So yeah, I guess this direction works. So again, the places of movement has to be functional. We need to kind of think about function in these type of things. Transformers are not necessarily have them. They, for the most part, covered. But they have them too. So they have some type of joints and the rest is kind of figured it out. But I wanted to visually represent that this thing is actually can move. This thing is actually what's definitely going to stay in the way of movement. So I just make this with a little bit more movement. And again, we have like pretty unequal distribution in terms of like or contrast rather contrast. I want to suggest that transformer design though. It's going to be interesting to put this thing in 3D, definitely, and sculpt it. I will learn a lot from it. Okay, let's just continue with legs. Legs. Legs doesn't have to be on the bottom bigger than where on the top. Yes, part of me kind of thinks that we need to make them bigger. Legs on top. They're kind of too small and too skinny for the transformer to have. The more information we put on them at the same time, it's not always a good thing. We put too much information in legs. Nope, working. But this thing inside definitely needs to be added because even in here, I guess. Legs have to be, yeah, I guess I made them too far apart. Let's just bring them a little bit closer. Look, they look too far apart. This could work better. Oh no! Yeah, we kind of missed the thing. I don't like how this looks at all. I should get rid of this. Okay, the top part of the legs looks pretty, like, interesting to me at least. Kind of works. Let's go back to this, get rid of the bottom part. Yeah, and when you work with mirroring, it's much easier just to erase them using the eraser tool. Yeah, this works pretty cool, but now we need to kind of make this I want to create pretty interesting stand for it to not be too generic at the same time. Like, it's a pretty hard thing to do though. Because again, this is one of the problems when you're working with flat views. They are usually not dynamic, and in order to make them dynamic, you kind of have to do this. Put some interesting twists. Since we're definitely going to redraw hand, I guess let's just redraw it again. So, this is going to be definitely a biceps. I don't think that... Guess too big. To make it a little bit smaller. Again, this thing represents movement. Movement represents movement. Oh shoot, we kinda have only half an hour left and we still not managed to go further, which is a problem. I need to make things faster. By the way, in order to showcase good dynamic, this is too big of a hand, we need to think about these. I don't know how to properly call it, so yeah. Things has to have some type of a flow inside them. So, for instance, if we draw a hand like this, this is not going to be an organic hand. But if we draw a hand like this, by creating this, like pew 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 pew. This way we make our hand, for the same for the legs, more organic looking. Scooby doop doop doop. Okay, this thing is much closer. Yep, don't forget about these. Pretty big hands. Yeah, right now I'm going to depict their hands as some type of a fist, in the fist position, because that way it's going to look like it's going to be dope. I don't know. Yep. Yeah, definitely they need to end somewhere in here. Someone in the center of it all. That means that hand is... oh, come on. Yeah. That means that hand is to... yeah, Transformers hands are actually pretty small. I guess the top should be smaller and this one a little bit bigger. Compared to their body. Kind of looks strange. Let's just put it in here. Change the direction a little bit. Wrong message. Okay. Okay. Looks strange, like a spiral. Yeah, so let's just get rid of it for now. I don't know how their hands are actually work. We need to look through the references to figure this out. So in terms of a shape, I kind of like how it looks, so let's keep it. Also, let's make this one a little bit smaller to make these transitions a little bit, yeah, like this. Because again, we need to remember that this thing is going to rotate and it kind of goes inward and it has to be like curved to create a potential for movement. We'll just work with this curvature to make it more apparent. Okay. Seems like this thing is actually yeah, let's just do one thing here, make it smaller, make this thing a little bit bigger. That way we will actually achieve more interesting results, I guess. Experimentación. So yeah, this thing has to be directed in here. Yeah, something like this. So I guess today's goal is to end this at least by finishing our top view. Because it took me a pretty decent amount of time to design this, because again, I think this is pretty important information. I can't not work with this information because we are going to implement all these things in here, and it's going to be a pretty crucial thing for our whole overall picture that will definitely showcase that these are our Transformers. Yeah. Actually, for the Transformers, this thing actually looks pretty big. Yeah, their heads, their legs pretty big, considerably big. And also they have like pretty strange legs though. From what the legs are actually kind of constructed. Interesting, interesting. They're not necessarily that bunch of references for the Transformers legs, though. They're usually avoiding them, maybe because they're looking pretty strange. So we are going to create our own versions of legs. Trying to figure out how they're going to operate. Oh no, this looks horrible. I guess we need to go out of proportions in order to make it much more cooler, because again, we kind of decided it's going to be 7 heads, but I guess it's going to be 7.5 heads, because it's kind of apparent that we need to extend leg a little bit because it's too short, especially when if we are going to depict some type of an interesting design for the leg. Again, I don't know what type of design I'm seeing here. Let's just figure it out. Maybe we'll find something interesting. Because again, we don't have references for the Transformers legs, so let's just do it by ourselves. How we would picture this, the Transformers head leg. Again, why not leg? Again, this leg has to have some type of movement, 100%. If the Transformer had leg, not the head. Yeah, my brain is kinda today's. Yeah. We definitely need to think about these things, like here, for instance, to create this. The same actually for the hand. The hand has to have these in it. These transitional things. They definitely have to be apparent here. Again, it's pretty hard to go in between organic and non-organic form and create something in between. Yeah, usually it becomes a problematic thing to do. So yeah, still I don't like how his legs were looking. Okay, right there is going to be things that work with a knee bend. Yep. Cool thing if we actually showcase it here too. Make this leg actually very big. But then we need to make this one even bigger. But if we'll do that, we need to make this thing bigger. And it looks strange. We're not going to do that. Also, we kind of need to... Okay, let's just make this smaller. Kind of too big, I think. Yeah, this looks better. Do the same for one in here. Something like this. Yeah, now let's just place it. Yeah, this is the wrong place. Exactly like this. Actually, making these type of divisions in here would be beneficial for us. let's just make a little bit more interesting design in here. And the same for this one. Again, I don't know how to make their legs look cool. We don't have that much information on Transformers' legs. So let's just draw them until we feel like they're looking pretty cool. Just imagine them a little bit foreshortened in perspective. Okay, we have a bunch of details that we need to get rid of. So yeah, as you see, I'm kind of struggling to find a right fit, proportional fit, even in this front view. And can you imagine how hard it could be if I made it right away in 3D, like space? Of course, this is one of the things that actually helps us to work with complex form and figuring out proportion for this form a little bit better, I guess. This thing is going to be behind. Yeah, it's good, and behind it's going to look something like this, like this. All these things are here for the potential movement. They create potential movement. And yeah, on the back we definitely need to add some type of a suggestion for a shoulder pad. Definitely will be a pretty cool thing to do. I guess it doesn't have to be that big though, but a little bit of suggestion that it's there. Kind of once, yeah, the whole thing about that pretty strangely distorted for some reason. Let's just try to move it. Oh, wait a minute. Selected two of these. Yeah, this way hand is like broken. Looks like broken. Let's just make it less broken. Place it in here. Still looks like broken. We don't need broken hand for the transformer, probably because of this thing. Kind of suggest that this leg, this arm is broken. Again, arms, legs. Today I'm even mixing them up like this. We definitely need to figure out how we will depict inside design in here. This is still a question to answer. I'm not sure. Maybe if I will make it a little bit like this, that would be better. Better. Yeah, we suggest some type of rotation in here. Potential rotation. Yeah, I can't figure out what's the problem. The problem with this. this thing looks out of place. So we need to make it like this. That way it's going to look better. But the problema is, let's just misplace it in a different position, then we will make this right. Like this. Yeah, this looks better. And then we put it in the place. Yeah, that was the problem. Exactly that. Goodbye. We just copy paste you. Copy paste. Mirror. Mirror. Oh. Ah, actually this works because it's on another layer. I just try to find a fit. Pretty cool. It's definitely going to be misplaced a little bit, but still it's pretty close. Yeah, maybe this one. Let's leave it as it is. Actually, yeah, a little bit down, but still. Check this out. I don't know, but now I kind of feel that this thing has to be bigger. So, okay, let's just save for now. I don't want to lose progress. Did a lot of things, and they're not necessarily something that we could control. So, I definitely, if I will try to redo this after losing the progress, is definitely going to look completely different. So that's one of the reasons why we probably should. It's pretty hard to figure out form for this part, because again, the only thing that you could think of is something similar to a human anatomy. That's it. I guess the same that they did for the transformers, because whatever you do in here, it's not going to look pretty, or just not going to work in terms of a function. So you kind of need to figure out the way to work around this problem. Okay. What else we can do? Now let's just not going to put any shoulder pads. Instead, let's just work on these. Make them a little bit more apparent. Apparent. Yes, still I have problems with arms. They seem a little bit off. Either they have to be a little bit smaller or directed in a different way. Yeah, let's just make them a little bit differently. suggest something like close to human. Okay, that looked pretty normal. I could work with that. So again, it has pretty long legs. Part of me actually wants to make these things even longer. So like, of course we could do this. We could just create another layer, and on this layer we just going to experiment with these things, because I'm not going to, I kind of need to think if I will add them or not. Yeah, something like this, for instance. Because by adding something like this, it actually kind of going to look pretty cool. Not everywhere, but in some parts. Let's go to white, get rid of these, and now just see how it looks. Kinda cool. Kinda cool. This one and this one. Yeah, this one is too short. It's like a short skirt. It looks strange. At least in this particular instance. Yeah, we definitely need to add something like this. So let's just experiment on a different layer with these. Try to figure out what the best way to showcase it. I guess the first idea was okay, like for the sides it looks pretty cool. But like for the center, not necessarily. Maybe we don't even need a center. Maybe we just need additional, like this, and then something small in here. Let's just check this out. But again, at some point it's going to restrict movement, so yeah. So if this thing is in the center, it kind of works. The only thing, I guess, we need to make it a little bit shorter. We could make it a little bit bigger though, but a little bit shorter. Yeah, something like this. Maybe even make it bigger, like this. Nope, does not look right. Yeah, so far this one looks normal. Let's make it a little bit shorter now. Yeah, the problem about this one is no matter what we do, we're going to figure out what's going to work only in 3D. And the problem is, working with these separate parts in 3D is going to be crazy hard. Yeah, because they're going to, we need to kind of extrude them or create a separate object for them and place them in perspective, in the place that we need. So it doesn't look good. Let's just try to actually make this one bigger. So for instance, what if we just extended this one? Not created a separate layer, but just extended this one. Maybe this is going to look cool. It kind of works, but and kind of don't. What if we made it like this? Oh shoot. Wait. Yeah, this actually looks kind of cool. The only thing that we need to decide, should we get rid of this one or not? Yeah, this one looks a little bit better. And again, like you see, when we are zooming out, we still have a big things in here and small things. And when you zoom out on the transformers, you're not seeing these things. You're just basically seeing a mess. I don't know what is the problem with transformers. Either they have too much of the textures that makes them too busy, and probably in their original design they could look pretty cool, but because they were over textured and for make them like too metal looking, and because they kind of reflect everything around them, it's kind of could create a problem in design. So maybe their original design is pretty good, but they design was broken because of the problems with it. So yeah, I just leave it at this, and the last thing that we're going to do before we will end the session, I guess we need to work on this one. Actually could work too if we would extend these. Let's just try another version of this. For instance, if I extend these right here, for instance, and then make them like this, it could work too. Probably. We definitely going to see that. So no, it's too pointy. Yeah, something like this. Something like this. Something like this. Because like these things are something that definitely needs to be placed. These one kind of look pretty cool. But like part of me wants to make this thing a little bit smaller. Oh yeah, we definitely need to make it a little bit smaller, because again we need to work with the unequal distribution, and they are on pretty similar line. To make it smaller that way, we definitely will solve this problem. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I guess we'll leave this and this thing. Yeah, and as I said before, yeah, this thing is not working. Let's just delete it, leave it with this, and go to work on our hands. Or legs. Come on, again I call them hands. You gotta be serious. Curious. What? Shh. No. Kidding me. Yeah, their legs are pretty complex. I don't know, we could work with their legs in the different positions. The one thing I guess that I will do is I will suggest this type of movement in here. Something like these type of planes. And then I will just figure out what type of design I would implement in here. But again, we don't have that much possibilities for the legs though. For the bottom part of the leg. We could actually repeat the things that we already did on top. Let's just do that. Repeat things that we already did on top. Like in this part. And this is going to be just going in here. Oh, it kind of looks pretty cool. And yeah, don't forget that in here we definitely need the separator that will help legs to bend in different directions. So this thing definitely has to be here. Again, thinking about function. A little bit, not necessarily like overthinking it, but at least consider it. I guess 3 fingers would be enough for the transformer to have. Should we implement some type of a claw? Looks so strange, gigantic. We need to stay in these grounds. But it still seems a little bit short. I wanted to make it get rid of unnecessary lines that could prevent us from I guess we will figure out this design in 3D because unfortunately right here we only can work with a just make something like this. This thing is going to be there. Yeah, it looks strange. Yeah, first, I'm not very good in drawing these type of things, like legs. So this is one of the problems I'm gonna having kinda strange. So it's just a boot. Yeah, Transformers just have some type of a boot. Boots. They kind of have some type of, I don't know, claws. At least Decepticons. We're not necessarily working with Decepticons, but we don't have any references for our guys, like, I'm just trying to create a problem. But let's just leave it at this for now. Quickly go through the references and see what we could find. This is our Pinterest references, so yeah, I could take something from a like this. But it's definitely not going to work if we will try to showcase something like this, like in Decepticon. Let's just find something in between. Okay, we have like a big thing in here, like for the Optimus Prime, as like a bulky thing in here that extends. They kind of have something like this on the back though. This thing is going to go there. It looks kind of bulky. I don't know. There's no organic thing in it. It needs to make something organic look to make it more organic looking. Even by adding these. Yeah, like this side I kind of like, but the opposite side don't much. Oh, I actually could make something interesting in here. It's like a car. Yeah, it looks pretty strange. But I guess whatever we'll do, it's going to look strange. Because if I add things in here and do the same as this, it seems strange. Like when we look at the Transformers' legs, they actually don't have to be. Yeah, definitely. So they pretty wide on the back, but when the closer they get to the front, they kind of become a little bit skewed, smaller. That make that look makes them pretty cool looking. Actually looks pretty cool. Oh, come on. We need to sculpt all of this. You gotta be kidding me. Oh yeah, when we are going into sculpting this, it will take me years. It's definitely going to take me years. But this is a good thing to study though. Like, can you imagine how many things I will know then? Like, it's going to be an awesome thing to study. Truly awesome thing to study. It will take me a lot of time, but it's definitely going to look pretty cool. As long as it looks sick. In a good way. It's going to be cool. Also, I kind of want to add a little bit variety in design. Let's just make, a couple of round things in there, here and there. To suggest something. So we added then on shoulder pods in here. Because there's not much variety in this design necessarily. Kind of creates a problem. By adding these, we actually that way will add a little bit of variety to our design and make it much more appealing. Usually I'm not mixing these type of things. If I have one particular form, I stick to it. But when design is too similar and there's no like contrast to it. One of the reasons why I decided to add these things, it seems to me that if we're not going to add these, let's just try one here. This is kind of a half thing. Oh cool, it's actually going to look like an eye. So that way we can create we make flow around inside the form a little bit more, I'd say, pronounced, because before we kind of had like all these triangle things and sharp things, couple of like not sharp things, but by adding these things we actually now kind of starting to create some type of interest. So now viewer will definitely pinpoint these things because they're now they are things that become much more evident, and he or she will travel faster through all these things. Yeah, which makes pretty interesting design. Okay, yeah, proportion wise I think it looks pretty cool. I like the legs, size of the head actually works. As I said before, like the smaller size of the head the better for this particular point, because let's just try to make this head bigger and it's definitely going to look pretty weird. What I talked about before, I guess. Yeah, let's just try to make this. So let's put it in the center here. Yeah, it looks kind of a little bit of strange. looks more like human. It doesn't feel like his body is that big, but this is actually looks pretty cool. We could of course make it a little bit slightly bigger, but I will think about that. I guess when we see this thing in 3D, actually we're going to rotate this thing, we definitely will know what works and what's not. At this particular stage, I think head works proportionally. It doesn't have to be bigger. It seems like intuitively that I kind of want to make it bigger, but again, it will definitely not going to be something that I would probably need to do. And the next stream is definitely going to be a hard thing, because next, the thing that we're going to do is going to be pretty crazy in terms of, oh yeah, let's just delete the necessary details in here and here. It seemed like I draw something there. Actually, this thing looks not that bad though. We could use it as a variety design. So we're definitely going to work on varieties, and we're actually not going to sculpt them. I think since these are separate objects, so when we're going to sculpt, all these things are could be made from one form. So we not necessarily need to create a separate object to make this. So we're basically going to work with one big mass, and we're going to separate this mass, add to this mass, subtract from this mass, and it's going to be pretty like one directional. But the problem with these, they are a little bit separate. So this thing definitely has to be separate from this one. So I guess we're not going to work with these. We're just basically going to work with these, and these additional things we are going to add when we're going to draw, because most of the questions already going to be answered and we're not going to stress about them. Again, we're not working with we're not going to like render this into 3D, put into 2D and just basically use it. No, we just use 3D for understanding form. We're not cheating. We're just using 3D to understand form better, because again, this is a crazy complex form. At least for me, I rarely worked with that complex form. So for me, it's going to be definitely a challenge. Which is the whole point of this challenge. This is not only Fanart challenge, this is actually a challenge for me. Yeah, let's just, oh, yeah. Finish these things. Oh shoot, I'm working on a different layer, unfortunately. So Transformer's body, yeah? Yeah. Kinda wanted to change direction for this thing a little bit. And we're going to sculpt this, of course, it will create a pretty interesting problem. So let's just connect all our edges in order to clearly understand and separate where they are and how they work. Yeah, I kind of like how the legs works though. These things actually could serve as some type of I don't know how it's in English though. Like in Russian, it's amortizaторы. But in English, not necessarily. No. Oh, let's just see it. Let's just find it. How it's going to be in English. Shock absorbers? Really? Yeah, it kind of works. So yeah, these things are going to work like a shock absorbers, so when he's going to land from a big thing, they're going to soften the thing. It's a pretty cool element though. Now let's just make it a little bit less obvious in here. It's definitely going to be a third one. Yeah, like this. So these shock absorbers are going to be something interesting to work with. And also, I would definitely make this one like this. Damn, I kind of like how his legs looking though. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Pretty cool. We still don't have that much information on arms. Or yeah, I will think about that though, because with arms it's pretty hard because they are going to change direction a lot. So for arms, definitely going to be something to work with. I don't know, kind of looks cool. We almost can't delete this though. Or we could make it like this to make unequal division. Something in here is definitely going to be too. Yeah, kind of looks cool. About these though, like I guess something would definitely be here. Something would definitely be here. In order to make this design a little bit more design. And I would definitely want to put something in here. Or not. Or something in here. Actually, yeah, this looks pretty cool. This is the mouth, these are the ears, these are the eyes. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, pretty cool design. It's still moderately busy, I'd say. But at least understandably busy. Also, I guess what now since I'm now thinking about construction more, not construction, but yeah, I would definitely extend this one, like it's going to be going back. Definitely it's going to go back. Awesome. Awesome, 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 awesome. Also, we kinda could change these by making them a little bit smaller. And in here. This way we're actually repeating a bunch of things. And the neck, that way it would be much more apparent. And of course we can't forget that we have like something behind too. That thing is actually makes creates the need to make head a little bit bigger, like slightly bigger, and put it a little bit lower. But no, that way it's going to kill all proportions. We need to stay around these proportions, I guess. Yeah, looks pretty cool. And yeah, what I definitely going to do is to make this a little bit bigger. again, we need to think about how this actually wraps around too. And it does wraps around. So we don't want to forget that we have these in there. Yeah. And again, the problem is after we're going to put this in 3D, oh, it's going to create problems in terms of understanding the complexity of this design, because again, it's moderately complex, and at the same time, like trying to figure out how it's going to look in 3D, putting this into 3D and making it right, making it work, definitely going to be something. Oh, actually, either we make this like this or like this. Yeah, let's just make it like this. Okay. Yeah, looks pretty cool. Again, the problem with hands though, still I didn't solve it properly. Let's just see the hands of the Optimus Prime again and try to work around them. They kinda human-like. So I wouldn't probably use them as a human-like, not did them as a human. They has to be similar to human, but not necessarily the same. Kind of want to subdivide them and make really interesting design. Again, we don't have that much pixelization to work with, so pixels to work with, which is a good thing from one hand. And yeah, I kind of want to make things here like a glove. Yeah, Wolverine. Yeah. Nope, we're not going to that. Not for the Transformers. We already have mix of two genres, like cartoons and comic. So, or the game and comic. So I'm not going to. One here, phalange. One phalange here, and one here, and point. And then we have like different fingers in there. Yeah, definitely going to be a problem to make a hand the proper way. I guess we're going to experiment with the hand in 3D more, because again, we don't have that much pixelization in here to work with the hand, unfortunately. So we definitely need to actually adding these things in for the hand is going to be a pretty cool thing to do. Let's just do that. Yeah, put them in here. And here, in here, in here, in here. Actually, let's make this thing a little bit more pointy. We don't have an angle necessarily to do that though. Yeah, we can't manage this properly. But we could do... No, I'm not going to do that. Let's assume that this thing is actually similar to what we have in hands or legs. Come on, today is the day of mixing up hands with legs. Yeah, definitely, for some reason it's present. Okay. Seems looks pretty cool. Oh no. Yeah, I don't want to erase this one. Instead, we need to do this in here. Looks pretty cool. Yes, so on that note, I guess we are going to slowly finish our session. Let's just finish with these. Just basically suggesting form or surface direction. The only problem about this, how it's placed, is that, yeah, like we need something like this to make it much more. And then of course we could work with this. Yeah, this looks better. So these are going to be something in between, transition. These are going to be here, this is in between, and then something like this. Yeah, I think it uses a bunch of repetitive elements. So like mostly triangles, we have a bunch of triangles in here. We have, yeah, these type of shapes that kind of repeats themselves in here a little bit. So these things are similar to these things, these. So things are a little bit. Of course, we could make them more apparent by adding something in here. But we can already have these, like, with this type of angle. So overall design kind of looks coherent, I think. On the exception of like problematic placements of the hands and whatever. So aside these problems, looks workable. Adjustable design in the hands. Okay, looks good. Yeah, so yeah, we can like hands, how they look. I like how things look in legs, even from far. So like already we can see that even by looking from far away, we see this one pretty clear. So the legs are pretty clear in terms of the design. This thing is pretty clear. So this is the place of rest. This is the place of somewhat business. This is the place of rest. Again, we have the place of business. I don't know if it actually shows properly. Let's make it a little bigger. So yeah. This is the place of rest. This is the place of business. This is the place of rest. Again, this is the place of business. this is the place of rest. This is the place of business, when details are. Again, same for this. Rest, kind of busy. Now, this is busy, and compared to this business, this one is rest. Again, business, oh. Rest, and again, business. What? Yeah, that was a glitch. As you see, there was a glitch. Probably because of this one. I don't know. So in terms of the design, I kind of like how it looks. Yep. Like how it looks. And the hardest thing is definitely going to be to basically place this thing in two other projections. Yeah, this is going to be crazy. First thing that we are going to do right now, right away, is to just basically choose this. Since I guess I'm not going to do anything much with the silhouette. Oh yeah, this one and this one too. I hope I am actually duplicating them, not deleting them. Let's just see this. Yeah, I duplicated them. So we work with two layers, with the body and adjustable design. No? Oh no. So yeah, we work with this one. This is the body. This is the one. This is the one, and this is the one. Yeah, so like this. Turn on this one and place these two, not like this, but like this. Yeah. This is like the first thing, of course, that we are going to do, is to just place them in here. And of course, kind of erase everything inside. I'm not going to erase everything inside because I'm going to use these things to make them right. So for instance, next part is going to be figuring out first, I guess, all these transitions, how they are going to work on the back. In the back. So yeah, so basically we need to work how it's going to look from the back. It's definitely going to be a pretty challenging thing, but pretty interesting, because again, everything that we're going to work with the back are going to be translated from the front view. So we kind of now already have to, so when we are designing thing in one particular view, we're not necessarily at the beginning thinking how it's going to look from all sides, but the more we work on this, the more questions we ask, because now we have this information, and now we kind of, okay, how this thing goes around though, like, yeah, now we need to ask these type of questions. So it's going to be pretty interesting how, for instance, these things are going to look from the back. So we need to kind of erase everything in here, and we need to figure it out how these things actually placed in here, like these observers. So yeah, they are going to be from completely different angle. This thing is going to be like this, and we need to figure out how to work with this. So this is definitely going to be a challenge. So basically we need to kind of turn our vision of this upside down, or completely reverse. And this is something that makes your brain kind of explode sometimes, especially when we work with this type of a complexity. But I guess it's going to be beneficial either way, because first, since I'm going to work with this in 3D, if I figured out some things, how these things are related in 2D, it would be easier for me to make better decisions in 3D. The same here, the same goes, like, yeah. So the more information we have, the better. So that way we will understand the complexity of this form from all possible angles. We definitely will solve some problems. So some type of problems going to be evidenced or solved in this stage, and most of the problems not going to be solved in this stage, and we're going to solve them in 3D when we are going to actually combine these views and create something cohesive, or like, yeah. So yeah, basically the next session, I guess, is going to be around this thing, and of course we need to completely redesign the back view, which is going to be crazy hard, because right here we already have some type of information. We need the only thing that we need to do with this information is reverse it. But here we need to create like complete new type of representation for this information, which is going to be a much harder thing to do, because now we need to use these, like, to properly place everything. Properly place shoulder pads, figure out how they are going to look from a side view. Oh shoot, this is going to be crazy. And exciting, and crazy, and exciting, and crazy. And actually, like, figure out how to work with the side view, because side view will, as I said before, would be going to be the one view that actually will help us to figure out the dimension. Because before that, like, if we're working with flat surfaces like this one and this one, we're not necessarily, by having back view and front view, we don't have information in terms of a depth. We don't have a depth. We just have two views, like two flat views, and pretty similar to each other. But when we have side view, it kind of helps us to imagine things now in 3D. So it's much more harder thing to have. And of course, ideally, we would have to combine all three views in order to create something awesome. But if we're talking about the crazy ideal way to imagine a form, we would of course work on the top view too, and on a bottom view too. Again, today I'm mixing up sides, so yeah, top here and bottom here. Ideally, we would work on the top and the bottom too. So, like, for instance, this one going to be from the bottom, looks something like this. We have this helmet, we have like this thing. So yeah, the top view, of course, is definitely could show us additional information about the depth. But usually these three views isn't enough for these type of surfaces. If it would work with, for instance, cars, the more beneficial view for the car, of course, the top view. So, like, front view for the car is kind of a, I don't know, I wouldn't say not important at all, but we have more information for the car in the top view. So yeah, no, it all depends on with what type of objects you're working with, and depending on what type of object we are working with, if object is, or subject is flat, not flat, but for instance, if we are working with the box, and this box is not, yeah, it's long, and for instance we have something inside of this box, yeah, some type of like things, that doesn't matter what. So yeah, and in order to figure out how to draw this box in three views, like, we need to choose, so in order, yeah, to analyze how this box is going to look from all three views, again, this is an example. We already kind of know how this box going to look in 3D, so, but either way. So in order to draw this, we need to figure out like three views. First view, of course, is going to be the front view. But the problem about front view, it doesn't have any information about the box necessarily. It kind of presents pretty limited information about the box. So, okay, we drew like the front view, of course. But again, it's not enough. We need more. Then we okay, go through the side view. Okay, we have side view, but this is it. Like, there's nothing on the side. Maybe it's going to be something in here, like some type of drawing. Of course, yeah, we could depict this type of a drawing in here. Yes. So that's it. But again, this view and this view don't present enough information for this particular subject that we're working with. In these cases, of course, if we don't have enough information, we always choosing an angle that represents this object or subject in an angle, not in an angle, but I guess you already figured out what I'm talking about. So yeah, basically we need to work with the top view. So top view going to be the view that definitely give us information that we need about the box. Now we know, okay, there's a bunch of things in here, now we see them, and now we need to design them in here. Whatever, yeah. Again, top, side, and front. And of course 3D. Somewhat 3D. I don't know. Bad example of 3D, but still. Let's just, for the sake of demonstrating, put them into somewhere. In a different layer, a little bit. Going down to the side, and of course let's just name our views too, because I didn't do that. Yeah, let's just name them here. Name our views. So this is of course a back view, and as you see, we didn't work with the back view for the box because the back view is the same for the front view. So we actually could choose right here to use the back view too, unless these sides are completely different. Side, and of course front. But basically this is how my brain is working with this type of information. I need to have representation for these views in order to figure out how these things works in here, like in 3D. I know, like, some artists think a little bit differently, and they not necessarily work with these isometric projections, but again, this is the way that I was first meet something close to art when I worked with when in school we had like this subject with learning how things it's not drawing, but it's more like technical thing, but still it doesn't touch upon the perspective at all, kind of disregarded perspective through the whole stages. And then of course when I met drawing per se, then I started to get like into perspective more and more. That's why I guess like most of my life I was pretty good in working with these front, side and top before I got into drawing and becoming an artist, because this was a technical thing to draw. And then like I had a choice: use this information or just like throw this information away and not use it at all. And I'd rather use this information because this is my strength. This is how my brain works, this is how I feel comfortable of combining these things, and I will do that. Yes, I need to do a bunch of work, so I need to draw them in this way, in this way, in this way, but guess what? It's not a time spent senselessly, because now by having these views we can put them in 3D and actually analyze this form. So yeah, this is actually kind of beneficial for me. Yeah, I'm spending a pretty decent amount of time to do this. Oh no! We destroyed our suggestible design. We misplaced it. Yep. Let's just put it back where it belongs. No! Oh no, we actually kind of misplaced everything. Oh, come on. When did this happen? Okay. I guess when I worked on these things, I messed up. Now we have a broken composition. We misplaced our table. It's in the wrong place. That's why you need to block them. So you see, I blocked this table and it stayed in one place. But the other ones was misplaced. Actually, this one kind of in a place too. So what's got shifted? I guess after this I will definitely... Come on, where are our layers though? Like characters stays the same. These are at the one place. The only thing that kind of loose sketch was misplaced. Contestant, nope, and chairs was misplaced. So these two was misplaced. Just choose only 3 of them. Not contestant. So 1. Yeah, definitely this. Put it in place. Whew. And this one. No. What? Yeah, we have contestant here. Not this one. Suggestible design, yeah. And we move suggestible design to where it belongs. Yeah, let's hope that this is the right thing. Because again, we worked on a composition pretty hard and I wouldn't want to lose this because of the... So yeah, let's just lock them. Let's just lock our sketch. I don't want to place it, misplace it, unfortunately. Yeah, seems that things placed the right way. So let's lock this one too, not alpha preserve. There's not much thing to move here. Let's lock these two. Yeah. Oh. Where's my transformers going? Yeah, that was scary. We worked on them and then lost everything. So let's just get rid of this one. Figuring out what layer it is. Oh, yeah, this is one of the problems when you have too much layers. Sometimes it kind of becomes... Yeah. So yeah, basically it's that. So my brain is kind of works like that, and because for the most of my learning, like the closest was I was the closest to drawing before even realizing that I want to become an artist in the future, was in a school where we actually draw these isometric projections of on a particular subject. Again, I don't know how do you call it in English. In Russian it's черчение, and basically the whole thing about the subject, you kind of work with isometric projections, trying to figure out these blocks and cubes, and then you're trying to put them into 3D isometric view without perspective and showcase them properly. So it's kind of an engineering thing, I don't know. So this was the closest where I actually got into drawing before even realizing it. And then of course, like 10 plus years later, I kind of realized, oh, I actually want to become an artist. And yep. And after that, of course, I had a choice to use this knowledge, which is not necessarily something that works for the drawing, because drawing is not calculated. It's more like, yeah, like freedom. There are calculations when it comes to drawing, for instance, when we work with the perspective, and because I knew this, and because I knew this beforehand, it actually helped me to catch on and work with the perspective much more quicker. So I kind of learned perspective quick and understood it pretty quickly, because I already was familiar with isometric perspective. That's and how it works and how all these things combines, how these views we are using to combine this particular view and whatever. So because of that, it was kind of beneficial for me, and I just decided to use this even to understand all forms, because for me this is the closest thing to figure it out the form. Because again, I spent time, yes, to make this design look cool, but I definitely spend much more design if I would make it in 3D, and definitely I don't think that I would come to these type of results. It definitely would be a much more horrible result, in my opinion, because again, but by making this in flat view, now I know. Now I kind of have additional information that I could use to combine these views in the future and make them 3D. Yeah, and of course, by working with the sculpting, it's going to add all these things to things that I already have, and will make this even much more cooler. So yeah, this is kind of a thing that I am that I like about this. And at the same time, it's something that kind of restricts me, because again, I don't have that much confidence in my skills, and instead of just like drawing this subject like here, I need to go through these stages. I need to go through top, side and back view. But again, it is an advantage, and at some point it disadvantage. The only disadvantage that I think it brings, it takes me more time to design things. But that way I actually going to think about design, rather just think about how to place this in perspective. So for me, beneficial thing about this type of method, like working with the projections and flat views, like top, front and whatever, top, side, front, or depending on what object we're working with, back, side, front, or back, two sides and front, because some objects actually have different sides to them. We need to work with different ones. So yeah, I spend a lot of time with working with this, but that way I actually can focus on design. I'm not focusing on how to place this thing in perspective, which kind of makes things a little bit easier. That way I will make sure that I will work on a design as best as I can, and then I will implement these things into 3D later. And after I know what design I have, then I can implement this design in 3D without a problem, because now I know what design I have. I can't repeat myself. So yeah, this is the beneficial part of this. And I guess downside of this is that it take me a lot of time, and working like taking a client work, it's definitely challenging because I need to adjust and know what type of objects I actually need to go through these stages or put through these stages, and what type of object and subjects I just need to draw right away because I don't have time to do this. But ideally, when I'm working on my personal projects, I always do this because yes, I spend a bunch of time to doing this, but at the same time I'm getting the results that I like, and I'm controlling things. I'm going through stages step by step. I'm working on design. So basically this stage that we are now on, this is basically the design stage, like in its full, how do you properly say it, view? I don't know. So for me, I'm seeing design in here. So I'm not seeing design in creating a particular silhouette from a particular angle, as probably character designers do usually. I'm actually seeing design from the front first, and designing all these elements. I'm creating as much interesting silhouette as possible in front view, in back view, and side view. Then I'm combining these things into 3D, and that way it kind of by itself already creates pretty interesting silhouette. Of course, when you're creating this type of things, you have to think how they look in 3D, and the more experience you get in this, the better you'll do this. But I found that this way of working with proportions, yeah, it's more technical, but at the same time, you don't need to redraw things too much, because the only thing that you need to figure out how things look in like flat view, and then you get enough information to put them in 3D. And it's kind of a hard step to go through, like from this to 3D. Pretty hard step, definitely, because again, like whoosh, whoosh, winnie, 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 winnie. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily work. Yeah, I guess I'm beginning to repeat myself all over again. So I got into this stage of over-explaining things. So let's just end on this. Yeah. So this is how my brain is working. Works. I need to work with these projections in order to figure out design first, and then after I will know how my designs are going to look like, then I'm combining them into 3D and working on them. And the funny thing is, so I didn't necessarily need to do this for Angry Birds, because they have pretty, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say that they have a simple form, but not that complex. And again, if you have objects and subjects that you can figure out like on the go right away to put them into your work without like going through these stages, do it. If you feel that you stumble upon something complex like this, and especially like this, then implementing this into 3D right away, it's too hard thing to do. And I guess to figuring out, I guess you need to first figure out how it looks in flat views, and after that you will get enough information to put it in 3D. Because again, if we going to take this as an example, before I created this one, which looks pretty decent, I didn't know how I'm going to work with this. So I tried to draw something in here, but I didn't have any nor idea nor vision how I'm going to exactly picture it. But after I've gone through this, I actually now had enough information at that time to draw this, and I get much more like confidence in drawing this, and in the end it kind of turns out pretty normal thing. So it still kind of looks pretty bad, but still it's better than nothing, which was before. Yes, and since I'm not necessarily figuring out how this thing looks from the back, of course, I kind of stumble upon the problem in here. So we definitely need to. We are going to address how to solve this problem when we're going to work with 3D, because one of the problems that I'm definitely having is how to properly depict this transformer hand from the back, because like in my head I'm not necessarily combining them together, and there's a good chance that we'll completely change the back because this thing is not working. Same goes for this one. Maybe something it's not going to work in 3D, and we definitely will change it. We'll see. But again, first we need to go through the stages. It might seem painful, but for someone, but in the end, I better choose something than nothing. And for me, before I draw this like body, I had nothing in my mind in terms of visioning how I could put these statues in here. But after I gone through this stage, now I'm actually have some type of vision about it, and now I can implement this vision in my work. So my whole like mantra about this, I rather have something than nothing at all. And by making this additional like steps or additional stages that not necessarily have to be a part of a project, I'm learning, I'm studying, I'm analyzing, and I'm putting in my visual memory, in my bank, visual memory bank, more and more information about complex forms. That way, next time that I will deal with this type of form, I will be much more confident in it and not going to hesitate, and maybe I will implement it right away, because now I will have some type of example how to do this. So again, this is the whole thing about the experience, but the only thing that you need to, I guess, to think about and what type of experience you want to gain. So whether it's going to be a bad experience or a good experience. For me, this type of way is a good experience because I'm not struggling that much. I'm struggling decent amount of time, enough amount of time, but still I'm getting more positive experience from this than negative. But for me, like trying to put this design right away in 3D and at the same time work on design, on how it's placed in the perspective, and thinking about all these things all together, it's too stressful for my brain, and I will definitely miss a bunch of things, redo a bunch of things, and it's going to be much more frustrating than doing this first and then go into 3D. So yeah, I guess on that point, or on that note, I will finish. And again, I forgot to start our chrono. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, this is shootful. So yeah, like in the right bottom corner you see like 4 hours mark, and usually I start a chrono timer, which allows me to kind of see how many hours I stream from out of 4, and unfortunately I forgot to do that, so let's just do this. This is approximately the time that we streamed, and I guess on 3:15 I will end, so yeah. Again, thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and again, I'm definitely continue to work on this in the next session, and we definitely need to address this side view. And after we will make this thing, we are going into a ZBrush. We're going to put this in ZBrush, and we're actually trying to sculpt it. Not necessarily with that particular amount of details. The only thing that we need to solve as a problem in sculpting is to make these as just understandable. So we need to just understand how these forms wrap around like backside, and this is it. So the sculpt definitely not going to be a professional and awesome sculpt that we could use in the final design. It's just going to be a sketching it's just going to be a 3D sketching. I basically call it 3D sketching. But the sketching is going to be based on some type of already existent design. So yeah. Again, I actually like the results. I'm pretty pumped about how it's going to look. It's going definitely to look pretty cool. Now we have pretty decent amount of elements to put into these piles, which is pretty cool. And after we will understand how they work in 3D, it's going to be even more cooler. So yeah, on that note, I guess now let's just finish, because I can talk like non-stop. So let's just cut myself out. So yeah, again, thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and see you in the next session. Bye bye.